I'm so glad all of you decided to invest your time in this program. I would particularly like to thank Dr. Anuji Gamage, who is a colleague and a friend of mine, who herself is a practitioner of being in the present. She was very keen to have this program because she had attended other programs on this topic. And I'm also very thankful to the Australian Awards Alumni Association, which we are doing this jointly with. So without much ado, let's get to our program. So our program is from 10:30 to 11:45. My plan is to really finish my talk at about, say, 11:20, and then give us time to discuss what we have discussed, what I have discussed. So please feel free. That might be easier logistically. Okay? So that's our plan. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So, okay, so we are going to talk today about being in the present, how to be in the present, what is being in the present, why do we need to be in the present, what is the impact of being in the present, how do we know we are in the present, and most importantly, how do we how do we do it, okay? So this is what we're going to discuss for 50 minutes. Now, before I talk to you about what being in the present is all about, let us see why being in the present moment is so important at this time phase of human existence as compared to any other time phases in human existence. If you look at your life, and if I were to look at my life, maybe my life 5-10 years ago, look at many people's lives, we know that we have tried to get so-called pleasure and happiness from external phenomena, external objects, external situations, and even other people, isn't it? We haven't really thought that our source of happiness and contentment and goodness and well-being would lie within ourselves. We don't really think about it that way. So many of us, when we say we are feeling unhappy, or when we are feeling bored, when we are feeling irritable, we think, let's go shopping. Even if you don't have money, let's go window shopping. Or we say, let's go and hit that chocolate cake, or let's go and have a drink, or let's go and meet up with friends on Friday. That's one group of people. You're trying to get happiness when you don't feel internally well through external phenomena. So you have basically given your happiness to other sources, hoping they will give you happiness. So you really have no source of happiness within yourself. There's another bunch of people whose source of happiness relies on social prestige, positions, power. We clamor to be promoted, to go up in the department, up in our institution. We clamor for that third vehicle or the first vehicle, for that next plot of land, accumulating. And then we think that those accumulations and objects would give us a sense of well-being, happiness. Of course, at the moment we are doing it, we are accumulating these various objects and going for parties and going shopping and meeting up with friends. At that moment, momentarily, we do have a sense of excitement, isn't it? But they're also very transitory. Now, in this situation that we find ourselves globally, it's not locally, it's globally, in our entire earth, in human existence, we see that most of the source of pleasure that we thought would give us happiness is not available to us. And it may not be available to us for a long time, because we need to get this pandemic situation under control, not only in our country, but in the entire world, to bring some semblance of normalcy into our previous life. So we need to get adapted to a new way of living. And this new way of living doesn't really include partying, meeting up with friends, even working for prestigious positions. You now look at it and you think, why was I so intent on being this person, that person, this departmental head, or top of an association, or doing that extra degree? There are people who do like 2, 3, 4 PhDs and accumulating things. All of those things that you have done over the years from some of you might seem rather superficial, to say the least. Then, when these sources of pleasure, which we now see very clearly, is so transitory, so temporary, and so uncertain, we can't reach out to them to give us happiness. Then where do we reach out to, really? we reach out to be in the present, to be here to give happiness. So now we are not going to give our happiness to objects and situations and people external of ourselves to give us goodness, happiness, well-being, but instead, by being in the present moment, we start cultivating happiness from within ourselves. So therefore, present moment awareness is a strategy, it's a way of life really. It's a way of life living until your last moment in this life, in this planet, of investing and cultivating happiness from within yourself by living in the present. Now you might ask me, well, don't we live in the present? Because living in the present means living in the here and now. But actually, if you look at yourself, even if you look at these 5 minutes since we started this webinar, if you looked at your mind, where was your mind really? I'm sure you have realized that your mind was in the past, even about the breakfast that you had today, or in the future about the project report that you need to do, or what am I going to have for lunch? Will I have an opportunity to ask questions from this person? Or what's there for dinner? Will that vegetable truck come down our road? You know, your mind has now gone to a future which you don't even know would happen. Another place that our mind goes to is fantasies. We just love to think of the day I win the Nobel Prize. You know you're not going to win the Nobel Prize, but it's good to think about it. Or when I become Mr. World or Mrs. Universe. You do know that you don't have the potential to be that. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. But you can still fantasize about it. So we see that our life, we really actually invest our time in 3 places and not the present. We invest our time in the past, it's dead, it's gone, but we still like to rehash it. Some people like to think about it and get even more and more distressed, but they think about it anyway in a perverse. Some people put their mind into the future and think of things they might do and then try to get happy. And then there's another bunch who like to think of fantasizing things and then to be happy. Now, all these 3 areas that an untrained human mind lives in is very, very unpredictable. And we see it now more than ever since the COVID-19 situation unfolded for us. We see that our past is actually, we have to live in new normal. What we did in March cannot be really done in April or May. It's a chapter closed. We have to adapt to something. Future, it's uncertain. Future is always uncertain, but we thought it was certain. That's the only difference. Then fantasy, we can't actually fantasize because you realize fantasy actually has no hold. However, how about we think of living in a different mode? How about if you live now? So what is my now here? I'm sitting in my bedroom by myself. I'm seeing from the corner of my eye, I see a photo, I see Anuji's picture. I see somebody called Ramesh Anthony's picture, and I see my picture on the right. I see my PowerPoint slide, and that's all there is to me. I don't know anybody. I don't think I can't connect with any of you. That is my present. I try to live in that present. Why do I say try? Of course, my mind wanders to the past, or what I had for breakfast, which was, by the way, mungeta. What I might have for lunch, just wander. But I have trained my mind to bring it back to be here. So what is being here really involve? When you say a person lives in the present moment, it means a person lives with the current experience. It means attentiveness to the current experience, however tough that current experience is. So it doesn't mean that you're attentive to the current experience, which is pleasurable. We like that. We like to go for a party, and if everybody is complimenting us, the way we look, our dress, or the food we cook, we like to be in that current experience. But being in the present moment doesn't include only those called positives. It also includes embracing our unwholesome and unhealthy experiences, such as, for example, being the brunt of somebody's jealousy, knowing that your best friend had cheated on you, or that you are embracing the anger and the jealousy that is unfolding within yourself. So the first dimension of present moment awareness is being attentive to the current experience that is unfolding to you, whether it's from within you in the form of various emotions or outside of you in the context of whatever environment you find yourself. which in my case now is staring into somewhat a blank laptop and talking to you. The second dimension of present moment awareness is being aware of your current experience and not doing elaborate processing. Now, I have highlighted, I have increased the font size, and I have underlined the word elaborate. That's a key word in this slide. So what does elaborate processing mean? Now, let me tell you an analogy, which I read from a Buddhist scripture. It's funny, but it's also really explains what I want to say. So let's look at this monk, these two monks in this temple. So there was an elderly monk and a younger monk. And the elderly monk was somewhat spiritually developed. He had practiced being in the present moment and he had developed himself. And there's a younger monk who was not pleased to be in the robes. He had been given to the temple at a young age for various reasons, and he was waiting to get out of this situation he finds himself in. The younger monk's job was one of the jobs was to fan the elder monk at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, fan him. So it was very warm in that village. So while he was fanning, the younger monk has not practiced his mind to be in the present moment. His mind was in the past, the future, the fantasy, the usual untrained mind of a human being. So while fanning, now his mind is thinking, "Oh, what is this nonsense? I'm in this temple, fanning this elderly monk. Is this what my life is about? I mean, as a 17-year-old man, young fellow, I could have done so much better than being here. If I was in the village, it would have been so much better." In the village, I remember Anusha, who was in Montessori school with me before I was given to the temple for ordaining. I wonder how Anusha is. Actually, Anusha and I had an excellent relationship in the Montessori. She was a very pretty girl. So now she must be also 17 years of age. She must be very pretty herself now. In fact, when I go to the village, Anusha and I might rekindle our attachment and our attraction. We must really, I'm sure we'll connect with each other. And at 17 years, I think it's quite a useful time to get married. And I might ask my parents to give me in marriage to Anusha. And I'm sure Anusha's parents would love to have me, And I'm sure we can make a good livelihood. My parents might give a few purchase from our paddy field for us to do our paddy cultivation. And Anusha's parents might give us a few bullock, like a bullock cart and a bull. And life will go on well, and we can have a small hut, and we can do the paddy cultivations. And I've always wanted 3 children. And these 3 children, I will bring them up as great Sri Lankan citizens. The only problem is when we were in the Montessori, Anusha was not very good in disciplining children. So I have a feeling that if Anusha hits my child, this is how I'm going to hit her. And he bangs the head of the headman with the fan. And the headman looks at the younger monk and says, "So it seems you have got married and you are hitting Anusha, but you actually hit me." Now, isn't that an example of our own minds? Where while staying in the current experience, we elaborate on things that are actually so irrelevant and so non-existent. Like the younger monk who ultimately ended up getting married to Anusha, whom he hasn't seen for like 10 plus years, and was thinking of hitting her, but actually hit the monk. So therefore, what a person who is living in the present moment doesn't do is that while he or she is with the current experience, when he or she sees the mind going elsewhere, he or she brings it back to the current experience and does not think. When an individual starts living in this way, the capacity to tolerate negative emotions increases. So when you start not elaborating on your thoughts, but simply containing yourself and living in the present, you could see your negative emotions much more clearly. So you will see the first seeds of sadness. You will see the first seeds of anger, the irritability, the revenge, the nasty word that's about to just come out of your mouth, but you will see its seedling stage. When you start practicing present moment awareness, you will be able to tolerate it and keep it within yourself. Many of us can't, isn't it? If you can't hit somebody, you will give them a nasty word. If you can't give a nasty word, you will give them a nasty look. If you can't give them a nasty look, you will start a rumor behind their back. Isn't that what we usually do? However, when a person lives in the present moment, those kind of unwholesome tendencies of living in the world, living in our relationship, living with ourselves, starts getting chipped away over months and years, because your own negative emotions you can tolerate. When you tolerate your negative emotions, you also become disengaged with your habits, unhealthy habits and unhealthy behaviors. Say, for example, if you are addicted to certain kinds of food, certain kinds of substances like alcohol or tobacco or illicit drugs, if you are addicted to pornography, if you are engaged in certain kinds of flirtatious activities with various people who are not your partner, those are unhealthy behaviors because it can create havoc in your life. However, when somebody starts practicing present moment awareness, that person becomes very aware. When the mind starts going in to these habits, they are aware now. The mind is craving for that bottle of air. The mind is just wanting to reach out for it. You can see the beginning stages. When you see the beginning stages of your unhealthy habits kicking up, you have an opportunity, a window of opportunity to not give in to that habit. And with over time, with practicing not giving into a habit, that habit naturally dies a natural death. It's like, for example, if you have a plant in a pot and you don't give it sunlight, you don't give it water, you don't put fertilizer, it will die off, right? It won't die off tomorrow. Over the weeks, it will die off. So similarly, when you live in the present moment and you see your unhealthy habits come up, but you tolerate it within yourself by being aware of it and not giving to it, over time, those habits get exposed. Now, you might wonder, would this being in the present moment involve somebody who is, very like a doormat, accept anything, okay, let go, be here, yes, do anything to me? No. Accepting a present moment doesn't mean that you allow anybody to do anything for you. In fact, a person who is living in the present moment accepts the situation, but takes wise, constructive, wholesome action towards change. So, for example, say you're in a very unhealthy relationship where your spouse is not kind towards you. And that brings out a lot of anger and sadness within your own mind. You, as a practitioner of present moment awareness, might now keep that sadness and anger within yourself rather than putting it out towards your spouse in an unhealthy way or towards your children in an unhealthy way, but you are able to contain. However, a person who is in such a mood would also consider what it would be like to maybe leave this spouse or maybe talk to the spouse in a healthy way so that their relationship dynamics could change. But at the right moment, when the spouse and yourself is interested in changing. So therefore, present moment awareness doesn't only involve accepting, tolerating. It also involves taking wise action when the change is important at the right time when change could be worked. So that is what present moment, a mind of present moment awareness would have. Now, what does that give you? What does living in the present moment give you? What kind of changes can you find in your mind if you practice this? First of all, you will be less reactive to your feelings and thoughts, which means you'll be less reactive to life. Now, listening, if you look at this pandemic situation that we find ourselves in world over, a lot of us have different reactions. I was reading a research article that was done in the UK a few weeks ago. They said that 25% of people actually had no adverse reactions to this situation they find themselves in. That's a lot of people. Most of them were of an older population. However, 25% is a large chunk of human beings, while 14% was hugely distressed. So this goes on, which shows that everybody reacts to life situation in the same way. So all of us find ourselves connected through the Zoom conference, but our individual minds are different. My mind is different to say, there's a lady called Devika Samarapon, I can see her name. I see Anuji here. minds are very different because of what we have done to our minds. As we do present moment awareness to our minds, we see that we are less reactive to the feelings and thoughts that sprout up within ourselves. So, for example, some people, the moment anger comes, they want to put it out. So if the anger is towards a boss and you can't put it out towards a boss, they will take the co-workers or the subordinates, or if not, worse, the dog in the company. You hit the dog. Because why? You can't contain these feelings and let it not out. So on the other hand, if you're living in the present moment, what happens is you are able to contain these feelings, contain these thoughts, not be reactive. Therefore, you become less reactive to life. Your mind becomes rock solid. In the ancient times, apparently in Sri Lanka and most Asian countries, before a person came into a village, there was apparently a huge stamba. It's called a stamba, it's like a pillar. It showed to village people who are going by that if you go further, there is a village in which you can get some water and shelter and food. Apparently, this stamba, this pillar, whatever winds come from each of the four directions, it doesn't shake, it seems. It's rock solid. A person whose mind is in the present moment, who train their mind to be in the present moment because they do not react to feelings and thoughts springing up within themselves, becomes like that stamba. So strong that whatever winds of life hits them, they will not get shaken. And because of this, an individual over time of practicing present moment awareness is a reduction in uncomfortable emotions and thoughts. Remember the analogy I told you about the plant that you stopped giving sunlight to, you don't water it, you don't put fertilizer. Then with time, the plant will just die off. That's it, it's extinguished. Similarly, as you practice present moment awareness, because you become non-active, non-reactive to your feelings and thoughts, what's really interesting is over time, not over a week, maybe not over a month, but after several months of training in this way, actual springing up of uncomfortable emotions, whether it's anger or jealousy or sadness or revenge or vengeance, all these uncomfortable emotions, they also reduce with time. So you are actually having a bunches of more healthy emotions as compared to those uncomfortable, distressing emotions. And when that happens, you become more compassionate towards yourself. You actually start liking. If I ask many of you here, do you actually like yourself? How would you know you like yourself? Can you spend some time with yourself without having to be entertained by eating or talking to somebody? You know, some people can't even go to the toilet by themselves. They have to talk to somebody on the telephone while in the toilet. Some people can't drive by themselves to some place. They have to talk to somebody because they can't live with themselves, with their own thoughts. It's difficult. And how are you going to be like this when you're older? You have to live with yourself. So to train your mind now. So when there's a reduction in uncomfortable emotions and there is more and more healthier emotions in the moment, you become you actually start liking yourself and you become your best friend. When you start liking yourself and becoming more aware of yourself, you also become aware of other people's emotions. So with this tendency, you can kind of gauge people. You gauge that, hey, this person is very nice to me on my face and giving me compliments, saying I'm looking nice and inviting me to their house. But you feel that they don't really mean well to us. You can read their non-verbal behaviors, non-verbal facial expressions, non-verbal body gestures. Capacity starts developing within yourself. And because of that capacity, you can take really wise decisions with whom you're going to have a relationship. Whether it be an intimate partner, a friend, a business partner, you can decipher people very well. However, though you may not get into close relationship with unsavory characters who may not have good intentions towards you, you still have compassion towards them. So you're not a revengeful person at the end of the day. Because why do you have compassion towards them? Because you realize just as they may have unhealthy feelings towards me, hey, I was also like that, because I have seen my mind, and it's not as if I myself was an angel. I also had jealousy. I also had anger. I've also had feelings of revenge. So another person having it is just common humanity. It's shared humanity. So which means that you become more compassionate towards even your enemies, but you don't get into relationships. So with this kind of a milieu in your mind, you also increase in contentment and peace in your mind. So it's a beautiful mind to live with. It's a beautiful mind to age with. It's a beautiful mind to live in. And it's a beautiful person for other people to associate. You're a strength to others. Now, how do we live in the present? So now we are coming to actually the techniques, because all of these, what I told you, is more like theory, what you can find yourself, what's the quality of your mind if you live in the present moment. Now your question is, well, how do I do it? So there are two ways, two categories of ways in which you could do it. One is how you keep your mind in the present daily life activities, and the second is meditation. Now, how do you live in the so let me give you an analogy before I go to actually the practice of it. In ancient time, when there were no matchboxes or gas cookers or electric cookers or whatnot, people had apparently two stones which were called the fire stone. And what they did was they actually rubbed these two fire stones together until sufficient heat was generated, and a spark and cook their food. Now, say you are that person during the prehistoric times. You are given these two stones, fire stones, and you're rubbing. And then your arm is hurting. So you think, I'll take a rest, okay? I'll keep the two stones. Then you take a rest. Then you take back the two stones and then you rub all over again. Because why? The heat that was generated initially has now gone. You have to start from fresh. So every time you're restarting, there is no fire, you go hungry that night. Similarly, living in the present moment, if you're talking about the fire of living in the present moment, the two stones are practicing in the daily life, practicing meditation. So these two practices, meditation and daily life, if you keep rubbing it together regularly, every day, at one moment, your mind starts hitting that pain of living in the present moment, and you will be able to gain the consequences that I initially spoke. So when you say living in the present moment, daily life, how do you do it? It's really simple. Keep your mind in the activity you're doing, knowing what you're doing. Let me give you an analogy. Say you have a bookcase, and the bookcase has 3 shelves, and you have this whole bunch of magazines and books and little ornaments. What do? You keep the books on the shelf. The shelf holds the books. Similarly, let the activity you are doing be like the shelf on which the mind of which is the book is kept on. So you say you're cutting some no-call or carrot today for lunch. What do most people do while they are cutting? They are thinking of the dinner preparation, or they are thinking of, do I have enough curry powder in the fridge? Ayyo, these vegetable people don't come with curry powder. Why is that? Why is turmeric not there? Why is the Sri Lankan government stopped it? Does India have turmeric? Now the whole thing is about turmeric, but cutting the carrot. If you are living in the present moment, you will see that your mind is going to the turmeric situation or the vegetable vendors or how much of curry powder you have in your fridge. But the key difference is you bring it back to the process of cutting the carrot. If you're talking to your daughter, if you're talking to your son, if you're even playing with your dog, if you're working on your laptop, if you're brushing your teeth, if you're washing your hair, if you're ironing your clothes, every time you keep your mind on that daily activity. And when the mind wanders away from that daily activity, whether it's wandering away when you're ironing the clothes or washing your vegetables or raking the leaves in your garden, the moment you catch that the mind has wandered, even if it has wandered for 10 whole minutes before catching it, you gently bring it back to the activity you're doing. That's it. It's simple, but it's not easy to do because why? Most of your life you have been in the past, the future, and the fantasy. Because you had thought that this moment is somewhat boring. But really, when you train your mind to be in the present moment, you find the beauty of the present. You see things that you never really saw. So there's an analogy again from the books. It talks about a farmer who is interested in getting a bull for his paddy field. So he goes into the forest, gets an untamed, very strong bull. But because the bull is untamed, the farmer can't do much with him. He has to tame him first. So what does the farmer do? He ties the bull to this big tree with a rope. The bull is untamed. He's running to the left, but he can only go so far as the rope. Then he comes back to the tree. Then he sees something in front. Then he's running to the front. Then he comes back. Then he sees something at the back. Then he's running there. Then he comes back. So his entire day is running, running, running. But he can't run far also. He's coming back to the tree. Then, as he keeps on running 2,342 times, he starts stating his neck is also not being cut by the rope. His feet are also very painful, and he can see the farmer is not pleased with him. On the 2,443rd time, in the corner of his eye, he sees a dog who is not tied, whom the farmer very beautifully feeds, lovingly feeds. And the dog gets up and goes and does his thing, comes back and rests. On the 2,444th time, the bull thinks, why do I have to run? There's nowhere to run, really. How about if I stay like the dog? If I stay still? On the 2,445th time, the bull decided with some difficulty, because he has been running all his life, to stay near the foot of the tree he's tied in, containing the urge to run. The urge is still there, but he's containing it. So he's wanting to run, but he stays. On the 2,446 times, because he has contained himself, stayed at the foot of the tree, he sees in the corner of his eye beautiful butterflies he never saw, the beautiful greenery of the grass he never realized, the little trickle of the water of the stream behind him, which he never even knew existed. Then he realizes that it's living in the present that is so meaningful and it's so joyful, which springs up within himself. The 2,446th time, he realizes it's not worth it to run. The bull, you may now have realized, is the untrained mind. It is running and running and running and running. The future to the past and to the fantasy world, this position, that movie, this thing here and there, running. It doesn't give you anything. But now, like the bull, you come to this workshop, you decided, I'm going to stay put here. In this present moment, which is the foot of the tree. So daily life is that. So practice keeping your mind on whatever activity you're doing. So for example, some people I know, they read their mobile phone messages, they have their breakfast, and they have the TV on to read it. So all three are done together. And they say, we are multitasking. In previous few years ago in organizations, multitasking was a part of job description. Now it's not anymore. Because we now know neurologically, you can't have so many stimulus, the mind can't handle it. It's always one stimulus at a time, but it's so short-lived, we can't detect it. We think we're doing many things, but we're actually not. So therefore, living in the present moment means keeping your mind on the most predominant activity you're doing. And when you see your mind wandering, which it will, bring it back here. Now, meditation is a second one. Now, meditation is a formal practice. It needs to be done with a formal meditation teacher. We know that a lot of people meditate on their own, which is a fantastic thing that your mind is inclined towards that. However, meditation can give its own, experiences, which a meditation teacher would need to explain to you the reasons. Otherwise, a person might get a bit concerned or get detract. So if you decide to start living in the present moment, to be that part of your life as an opportunity to make your mind resilient, kindly explore opportunities for meditation. Now, many of us who are in this Zoom webinar is from Sri Lanka, but I see there are a few from overseas as well. If you're in Sri Lanka, there are so many meditation opportunities in all the religions. So kindly connect with somebody that you know who is a good meditation teacher, whom you can take meditation instructions from and include that in your life so that you have a meditation practice first thing in the morning or in the evening or in the night or any other day. So you combine meditation as well as living in the present moment in order to develop the resilience of your mind. Now, let's talk a little bit more about meditation because many people tend to have misconceptions about it. Some people think meditation is having no thoughts. Now, that is not possible. Meditation, when you do certain types of meditation, of course, at those phases of an intense practice, you might get a phase where thoughts are kept at bay. However, when the meditator comes back into daily life, when they're mixing with other people, raking the leaves, talking to a person, those thoughts would come. But the difference between a meditator's thoughts or a person who's in the present moment's thoughts and a person who has not trained their mind that way is that the first person doesn't have any thoughts that are just like weeds. Now, if you look at most of our mind is like a weed colony. Weed in every sense. It's just so many thoughts popping up. You don't even know what these thoughts are. It's like a mess, like a jumble. However, in the case of a meditator, they will also have thoughts, but those thoughts are relevant and what is only required for that. They don't have bunches of unwieldy thoughts popping up at every moment. Some people also think that meditation is being blissed out. I want to bliss out. Meditation do give opportunities for happiness. There are certain phases in a meditator's journey that you can feel very blissed. Blissed not because of an external phenomena like going shopping or partying with friends or eating food that you like, but bliss that comes from within you. But it doesn't mean that you're on a 24/7 bliss state. Rather, bliss may come in certain phases, But what is predominant in a meditation mind is that peace and contentment, an equanimity, a balance like a still pool of water. That is the more tendency of the mind. Meditators or some meditators or novice meditators think that meditation means concentrating fiercely. So sometimes you go to meditation halls and people are like this, like the teeth, you are worrying for the people's teeth also, that they might break off. Or something like chip off, because the mind is so much of intensity and strain on the face. You can't possibly meditate like that. How can you have contentment if you're worried that your teeth are going to fall off because you're grinding your teeth so much? So meditation is not a fierce concentration. It's a gentle way of keeping your mind on the activity you're doing. Some people like to boast that they're a meditator. Sometimes you go to these various activities and they just happen to say, I have been meditating for like 30 years. Now you see that there's a bit of a conceit there. Because if you are truly into the practice of meditation or anything wholesome, conceit should go with time. Your self-centeredness obviously will reduce. What therefore meditation is, what I talked about is some of the things that meditation is not. What meditation is that it is a way of life. Living in the present moment is a way of life. All of us who have been introduced to brushing teeth in the morning and in the evening can't think of a life without it, isn't it? I mean, if you don't brush your teeth for one session, you feel really, really awful. Or if you have been introduced to the act of combing your hair before you go out, you would think twice. You wouldn't even think twice, you would do it. Even if somebody's ringing the bell, you look at your hair, because that's your way of life. However, a person who doesn't know toothpaste, who doesn't know about brushing teeth, who has never washed his hair, we see some people like that in the streets, but then that is their life. We call it a homeless life. So a meditating life or a living in the present moment life has to become your life process. Just like brushing the teeth, just like tapping your hair so that it looks okay before you open the gate to somebody. Living in the present moment should be your life way. Otherwise, you will not be able to get the benefits as if You just do meditation once a month for like 1 hour. You know, some people say, I'll go to the temple or the Koil church or the mosque once a month, no, and I go for a meditation class there. It's like, for example, somebody saying, I will only clean my house once a year, and I will clean it thoroughly. For 1 hour, I will clean it. For the remaining 365 or whatever days, you don't clean it. Would the house be in a good state? Of course not. Similarly, if you are going to get the benefits I spoke to you about in my initial slide, you need to do this every day. This should be your life. You should be able, you should have effort, the mental energy should be put forward to keeping your mind on whatever activity you're doing and to include a meditation practice daily as well. It's a commitment to yourself. It's a private affair. So people who are genuinely on the path would not be boasting about the number of meditation courses they've been to. They will not write blogs about it. Because why? Why will they not do it? Because their mind is not inclined towards it. Why? Self-centeredness, conceit has been chipped away over the years of practice. It's a result. Now, we are coming to the kind of last stages of my slide so that we can have more time to discuss. What's the time, Anuji?
Madam, it's 11:18.
Okay, great. So that's good. So one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about is how to manage their wandering mind. Because for many people, their mind is in such a chaos whirlpool of thoughts that they just don't know. They're so restless, they're so anxious, they're so panicky, they're so sad, lots and lots and lots and lots of thoughts. So I want to talk to you a little bit about thoughts and what we know about thoughts. First of all, thoughts are not facts. We think they're thoughts are facts, isn't it? Now, let me give you an example, very simple one. All of us are adults here. All of us may have had a crush on somebody when we were in school, when we were in a tuition class, when we were at university. Now, don't say you haven't had, I'm sure you have had. Okay? So let's consider this crush that we had, who we have not met for many years. Now, when you recall that crush, the person that you liked when you were in a younger years, into your mind, what kind of thoughts about that person come to your mind now? Maybe one thought, thank goodness I listened to my mother, I didn't get married to this person. What a nightmare that would have been. My goodness, if he's coming here with the vegetable truck, even I will go from the other side and run off. What a horrendous human being that was. But at that time, when you like the person, I found my life partner. It's a karmic attachment. How wonderful, beautiful this person is. I want to spend the rest of my life with this person until we're 100 years old and we both die together. That kind of fantasies you had. Now, you're the same person, he or she is the same person. What's the difference in your thoughts? So therefore, thoughts are really not facts, are they? They are working hypotheses for that moment and for a period of moment. But unfortunately, because we haven't seen through a meditating mind, we haven't seen that thoughts aren't facts, we accept thoughts as facts. So the moment something pops up into our head, I don't like that person. I like that person. We take it as the truth and we act on it. So therefore, whenever you are bombarded by it, get into the habit of thinking, I'm unsure about it. Is my thought correct? Maybe not, maybe yes. So make your thoughts a little bit more fluid. Don't take it rigidly as the truth. Always look at your own thoughts, forget about other people's thoughts, but your thoughts as maybe my thought that I just had now about my spouse or my child or the pandemic situation or my boss. It's true. Maybe it's not true. Take it in a very, fluid way. Your life will be so much more gentle. For some people, they're so bombarded with fantasies, so bombarded with thoughts. They're just so enmeshed in it. They really think that their thoughts are the ultimate epitome reality of the world. It's very difficult for them to be removed from their thoughts. For such a person, if that is you, one other technique that you could do is trace your thought back to the original thought. So for example, can you remember the analogy I told you about the young monk and the older monk? So where did he find himself ultimately in? Was him hitting his wife. Now, if that little monk was somewhat of a practitioner of being in the present moment. And if at that moment some insight opened up in him, he would have traced back his thought again to the origin, which is hitting the wife thinking of hitting the children, having a hut, having a paddy field, having bulls, getting the permission of the parents to marry Anusha, meeting Anusha in the village, in the temple, fanning the husband, fanning the big mom. So actually the original thought was, how tedious is it to fan the elderly monk? But where did he end up with? Hitting this Anusha whom he hasn't even met for all I know, she must be dead and gone also. So if you are a person who are enmeshed in thoughts, one way of breaking that tide of thoughts overtaking you is really practice being in the present moment the way I've told you before. And when you find yourself in the currents of thoughts, trace it back to the original, trace it back to the original, trace it back to the original. When you keep on doing that, these currents of thoughts generating in you over time will start reducing. Now, sometimes we do programs on present moment awareness. Many people then ask, not many, some people say, then does it mean, Pianjali, that we shouldn't think? How can we not think? I work in a corporate sector. We have to make budget plans. We have to make our vision mission plans. We have to make curriculum. You know, how to think about my patients. We have to make corporate projections. We have to have marketing plans. How can we do that? Are you saying not to think? And remember, I told you that this is not about not thinking. Even a very well accomplished, if I can say accomplished, meditator or a person who's in the present moment do think, but they don't elaborate and process and live in the past, live in the future, live in the present moment. Rather, they think what is required for that moment. So if you're in the corporate sector, if you're making your marketing projections, you're revising your budget, you work on it at that moment. But you don't fantasize. You don't live in the past. You don't live in the future. You don't put your mind into all those uncertain pockets. Instead, you do your plan, think about it at that moment, and let it be. So thinking is essential. It is important, but it is this elaborate processing of the thinking that is not with the present moment today. I just want to share with you this thought, this little slide, which tells you very beautifully. Now this little child has been told by the teacher what is the shortest cut to the milk and given a puzzle. And what is this very, very clever, wise child does? He draws a direct route to the milk, not through the puzzle, but directly, very quickly. The teacher gives the correct and even red markers. Because you see, life is usually very simple. We complicate it by imagining a non-existent problem. And what is that non-existent problem? The puzzle of thoughts in your mind. So if we can, over time, and I stress you over time, it won't happen tomorrow, it won't happen in 2 weeks, it won't happen in a month. But over time, as you train your mind to be in the present moment and to have a meditation practice, remember the 2 stones, with time your mind becomes more simple, much more powerful, much more resilient, that these puzzles of thoughts, which is like in the diagram, starts reducing, and you can see life clearly for what it is. My final slide I want to talk to you before we get into our questions is another dimension to psychological resilience by being in the present moment. It's about 2 other doors of our life. And we spoke about the mind door, the development of the mind door, which is the most powerful. But there are 2 other facets of our human experience which has to be managed if you want to get the great benefits of being in the present moment. And that is our speech and our action. Our speech, the kind of words that we put out from our mouth, and the bodily actions we do. So if you don't manage those in a wholesome way, all what I've spoken about here would not actually give you so much of benefit. So however much because you see, you can be a great thief, you can be an assassin, you can be a terrible human being by being in the present moment, isn't it? And you can be very good at it. Most assassins are supposed to be very good at concentration. But what makes you a wholesome person is, of course, developing your mind, but also having wholesome speech and action. So therefore, kindly, whenever you are about to put out a word from your from your mouth, or to act, consider, is this harmful to you? Is it harmful to another, or to both parties? If so, don't do it. The only way you will have an opportunity to consider this, harmful to me, harmful to another, is if you had been practicing present moment awareness. Because if you have not been practicing present moment awareness, you will give in to your past conditioning and do as you please, and you will make life worse and worse for you over the years of your life. So, for example, what are the regular unethical things that we do in life? Taking what is not yours. Now, though some people take phone calls from their office phone, they take A4 paper home for their children. Those are more concrete things. But what about things like robbing somebody's ideas? Plagiarism. That is robbing, isn't it? And how about lying? Making up rumors about people that you don't like. There are people that you give them some advice and they're angry at you for advising them. Behind their back, they have made a huge rumor. I remember some years ago, one of my students who was in psychotherapy with me, who was very fond of me, at the end when she got well, she told me, Madam, I'm so happy to have met you. Your children must be so happy to have a mother like you. So I said, well, I don't have children. And she said, really? I thought you had 4 children. So not 1, but 4. I said, no, I certainly don't even have 1 child. Just 1, 4. Really? We thought you were married 3 times with 4 children. I thought that was like pretty interesting. I can see Anuji laughing also. So I said, well, I'm married once, no children. So it has, so apparently a certain person in that batch had made up this whole story that I was married 3 times with 4 children. The reason I do not know, I didn't want to dwell there. But, creating rumors, gossiping, faking niceness. Some people meet you and they say, oh, how nice you're looking, but behind they're slapping you behind like nothing. Knives, daggers, manipulating other people. So if you are into those kind of games in life, and if you continue to play those games in life, however much you try to keep your mind in the present moment, your mind will be very, very restless. Why? When you start keeping your mind in the present moment, all these unwholesome, unethical things that you have done in your life starts coming up. And we have done all these things too. Some of us have done all of these I mentioned, or more or less. We're all not angels. But if you decide to practice living in the present moment, you certainly need to stop doing these now. All these unwholesome things. Because if you continue doing this, plus practice present moment awareness, you will not get the benefits that I have spoken to. So thank you very much. This is my talk for today, and we'll open it for questions if there are any. Over to you, Anuji.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much. And they will be maybe we can ask them to raise hands and then I will unmute.
Thank you very much, madam.
Any questions that we would want to discuss with madam?
Anuji, shall we unmute everybody and you can ask me the questions.
Okay, so I muted. I asked everyone whether they would like to post questions on this, madam. We still didn't receive anything. There was one interesting question. B3A20, that is, he or she was asking, what are the scientific evidence for your presentation as facts found in research? Madam, are you still there?
So the basis, the scientific basis, that's a very important question because we need to always question what has been said. So the initial, the methodology, the concepts, the practices all comes from Buddhist psychology. So it's 25 centuries old. So if a person was to look at the Buddhist scriptures, mindfulness, sati, manasikara, yoniso manasikara, all the Pali terms are what we have discussed today. And subsequently, about the late 1970s, in the Western psychological field, particularly started off with a man called Jon Kabat-Zinn, but also before that in the 1960s in the transpersonal psychology movement, there was a great interest in the practices that was there in the East, in the Buddhist psychology of 26 centuries ago. Then these psychologists and medical professionals brought it into the West, and they started practicing these practices of present moment awareness with their patients. One of the main studies is for the person who asked this question and for anybody else, is for you to really refer Jon Kabat-Zinn's book on full catastrophe living, where he practiced, where he taught present moment awareness to patients with arthritis who had difficulty managing their pain. So he practiced this in his clinics at Boston University in the USA and found excellent results in pain management by using mindfulness technique, or present moment awareness technique, which then he later wrote this book called Full Catastrophe Living. And subsequently, 3 psychologists from Oxford University, who later on went on to establish the Oxford Mindfulness Center, Teasdale, Siegel, and Williams, they visit Boston to meet Jon Kabat-Zinn and learns this technique, which is actually 26 centuries old from Buddhist psychology, and practices and teaches it to patients diagnosed with depression, chronic depression, treatment-resistant depression, where they found excellent results and where they actually published a book called Mindfulness, MBCT, Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy for Depression. Subsequently, a whole range of research articles have been done on psychological benefits, plus now new research articles are done on the neurological benefits, the immunological benefits of present moment awareness. In fact, at the University of Colombo, where I'm working, there's an entire huge research grant that some of my colleagues who's actually logged in here to this workshop too, has got by the World Bank and the government of Sri Lanka to study the psychological, the neurological, the immunological benefits of present moment awareness. Any other questions, Anuji?
Hello?
Yes. Yeah. Who is that?
Right. So Mr. Mohan wants to ask you a question.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think your chat is muted. That's why people can't post questions.
My chat is on.
Oh,
I think Anuji is.
is it?
Yeah, we can't post anything.
Is it? Yeah, I think. Yeah. So we'll just start. Now I think.
Now I opened it up. Sorry.
Hello, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would like to ask, like, when we start this, the awareness of the present situation, what are our benchmarks that we are in the process? How to evaluate ourselves? What are the identification that we can have that I am in the right track? Can you just explain?
Mm-hmm. So what you want to know is how do you know whether you're doing it, ne? So
exactly.
the real mind state that occurs when you're in the present moment is a sense of how would I say it? It's a sense of flow and a sense of a lot of relaxation and joy stemming up within you. Now, having said that, to get to those mind states, a person has to practice present moment awareness for a considerable amount of time. The reason is, in the initial stage, you're grappling with a whole lot of your previous life's conditioning, which means a lot of thoughts will start coming to you, and you will be seeing these thoughts, and you will be tolerating these thoughts without acting on it. So there's a lot of mental effort that goes into that process. The initial stages of the present moment awareness would be more like seeing lots and lots of thoughts, lots and lots of emotions, and being really enmeshed in it, dragged into it. Then you see your mind putting effort to distance yourself. It's a huge, like a casino going on inside your mind. But over the time, as you keep on practicing like this, you will see pockets of moments in your life, in your daily life, totally unexpected, where you're really on the object. And that object and you is one. That comes at a totally unexpected moment. So therefore, when you ask for benchmarks, there can be diverse benchmarks. I would suggest that you don't think of benchmarks. Rather, just keep your mind there. That's all what you have to do. Don't analyze further, because the more analysis means more thoughts. And I also want to encourage all of you, this topic on present is so researched, so well written now. Any Google searches will give you a lot of materials, a lot of documents, scientific documents, as well as groups that practice it that you can learn from. Any other questions? I think there are some typed in as well.
Yeah, there is one good question. Can we practice mindfulness during vipassana? The exact one he raised is it good to practice vipassana meditation for improving present moment awareness?
So my knowledge of meditation is as a student of meditation. I'm not a teacher, so I will tell you what I know. So meditation is, usually you can categorize meditation as two things. So rough category. So there is what you call a concentration part, where you really concentrate on what's happening on a given item, which is a predefined object, such as your breath or an object or a candle. Then there's also another way in which you can involve all objects that are happening around you in your meditation. It's more like the mindfulness moment. Now, in a meditation practice, both these, concentration and mindfulness, develop together. Samatha and vipassana develop together. Now, there are some traditions and some schools of thought that says we only do vipassana, we don't do samatha. Now, from what I understand and what my practice is and what I've read, that samatha, which is the more concentration element of meditation, is required, on which you will build a subsequent vipassana or a mindfulness. So, therefore, if you do both of these, which is actually a part of the same process, certainly you're doing present moment awareness. And because of you're doing present moment awareness, in the name of samatha and vipassana, you will certainly get the benefits that I've spoken to you about.
There's another interesting one. That is, can you explain some examples of manipulative behavior? I know you have.
It's a lot. Manipulation would be somebody who ignores you for a year, but then they want a favor from you, and they call you and say, "Yeah, Anjali, I've been thinking so much about you. You're the most lovely person, wonderful psychologist, the best in the country. Can you do this for me?" Those are manipulations, isn't it? Somebody who will spread a rumor about you, but on your face is really nice to you, who will give you a compliment, but who really dislikes you and who would go out of your way to make life difficult for you, who might manipulate you to get into relationships with you and misuse you. So there are enormous amount of manipulations. And of course, what is really important is not to look at the manipulations that other people do to you. But what is important is the manipulations that you do to others, because we cannot change other people. We can live with somebody for our entire life, but they will never change, isn't it? The only person that can change in this equation is us. So when I spoke about manipulations, I was not referring to manipulations of others, because what can we do with that? Because they had to make a decision to change. However, if we work on not being manipulated, manipulation can be very obvious ones, like, you know, stopping you getting a promotion or preventing you from doing some work, talking bad about you openly. Those are more obvious ones. But then there are also the subtle ones too, you know, misusing somebody, etc. So it's a whole range of behaviors. Yeah.
There are so many questions that we are receiving. Another one is a family closer to me. A family closer to me have problems with their teenage children. They always think negative of their parents and goodness around them. Please give us a straight point with them.
I think these are, Anuji, not necessarily present moment awareness questions, you know.
Yeah.
And these, when somebody gives a personal scenario like this, it's important that we go to the real crux of it. You know, we don't know why these people are behaving this way. We can't give an answer like this on a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
So it's important that a separate consultation is done on those.
Yes. And there is another one. When your senses are bombarded by so many sensory stimulations, as an example, say a mother who is handling 3 kids who are below, how can you practice present moment awareness? Is there a way?
Yeah, so the thing is, so the person written this question is obviously quite in the present moment aware, somewhat, because he or she is aware, as a mother, so she's aware that she's bombarded. That itself is being, some people don't even know they're bombarded. There are people who are fully bombarded but think they're highly relaxed. No, you don't even know that you're bombarded. You don't even know. So there are moments in our life, for example, sometimes people are calling, emails are coming, deadlines have to be made, food has to be made, houses have to be swept. Thoughts coming. So you can be aware of all of these thoughts, all of these phenomena, and be aware of it means present moment awareness. Then within that bombardment of so many stimulation, there may be one thing that is prominent. For example, you are finishing up your emails, but SMSs are coming beep beep on your phone, your child is screaming at the top of the thing, your husband is telling him to give you a cup of tea. But the most predominant stimulus is your emails. So what you need to do is, while being aware of the general bombardment of senses in your mind, gently bring your mind to the most predominant activity you're doing, which in this case is emailing. So gently, the key word here is gently. Don't force your mind, don't strain your mind. It's not good. Just gently bring
it. There is another one. If we contain our thoughts without letting them out in a healthy way, as they are tied to emotions, can the thoughts build up over time and cause havoc?
Okay. So this is this whole thing about, will I be like a balloon, one day burst open because things are in me, because the air is too much. See, the technique here in present moment awareness is not suppression. It's an important question. Now say, if you have a glass of water and all the time you're keeping it like this straight, right? Like that. The moment you kind of tilt it, the water will go, isn't it? It's not, present moment awareness is not that. But it could go to that if you practice it wrongly. What is present moment awareness? Keeping your mind on the activity you're doing, which is, in my case, looking at my own house window here and myself and seeing Anuji on the right. Then I will get thoughts. Like, for example, I can see chats are beeping. I get a thought. Then I can see that the time is, my alarm also went at 11:45. Now that's another thought. Now, if an individual starts thinking, oh my God, there are 7 chats, they're really, really beeping. Oh goodness, I should really, look into all of these. What would people think if I don't? Will they not like me? And go on that case. Now then, you are cultivating thoughts and you will suppress those. That's not the way. Present moment awareness means being aware of the thoughts and let it be. It takes practice to do that, to get to that point. But you practice and practice and practice. I mean, we have not got to the level of doing these Zooms without practicing. We have learned to talk as little kids in the Montessori. Our parents taught us, our teachers taught us. We did our scholarship exam. We did our O-levels. We did our A-levels. So we got to all of this to come here. So just like that, present moment awareness also requires a lot of practice. And do not think that your mind will one day blow up like a bomb because of thought suppression. What you need to do with these thoughts, therefore, has to be very well understood, which is a thought comes, don't add to it. Remember that picture I gave you about the little child? She didn't go into the maze at all, the maze of thoughts. Just saw and responded. When you do like that, there is no clinging, there is no bombardment inside of you. That's when the mind speaks. So you have to get the technique correctly.
And I like this one too. This is from Ramesh, and he's asking what type of programs we should be watching during quarantine and also related to COVID.
What do you mean by programs?
Maybe he's we are all in self quarantine, so maybe he wants to know what sort of TV programs we might have to watch, and also what sort of things to avoid, because we are getting bombarded with so much news related to COVID.
Yeah, so I would think the first thing would be obviously getting your source of information correct, which means the Ministry of Health, the epidemiology unit of our country, the Sri Lanka Medical Association, the World Health Organization. There are all this stuff. Everybody's saying everything. Everybody's an expert on COVID now, you see. So we mustn't listen to these self-professed experts, but we listen to the right medical community that's giving. So the first thing is choose your source of information and log into those sources maybe twice a day. That's enough. You don't have to be permanently looking through all the news reports. There are some random odd ones also. There was one that says that the helicopters were spraying some water about a few weeks ago. People actually believe that. I got about 3 people forwarding that to me as well and thought it was actually true. I don't know that it was true, but it doesn't seem to be true. So please, therefore, be very aware of the kind of source of information that you're logging into. It should be creditable, proper organization with properly qualified people. Second is, if you are in the habit of looking into sad, depressing, violent movies, songs, teledramas, poems, it is really best to detangle yourself from those things, because if your mind is already low, you don't want to get into the sad songs of, all that which is going to further dampen you. Get into humor. Humor is a beautiful softener of the mind. I think Sri Lankans are the most fantastic humor. Anything goes, they will have some joke coming out in 2 hours time. They're so creative. So have a bunch of those jokes. I collect these jokes. I have a small folder and I look at it and it's so hilarious. So get into more humor, more light-hearted comedies, light-hearted movies rather than airplane crashes or kidnapping and that pandemic there and this. That's going to put you down. Anuja, I'm aware that we have finished our time.
Yeah, that's
already over our time.
That's what I was going to tell. Yeah. Sure. So, madam, you might want to mention about their ideas and views.
Shall I say it?
Please, yes.
So, Dr. Anuj Gamage is from the Sri Lanka Association of Australian Awards Alumni, which is an organization where the Australian government have given awards for the degrees of fellowships Sri Lankan to further their education. So Dr. Anuj Gamage is the president of that association currently. So she was interested in maybe having a series over this pandemic situation we find ourselves in on topics on these kind of areas, mental health, psychology, which might interest the general public. So in order to see what requirements that people will have, Dr. Anuji will be sending out a survey monkey form just to share our views. And for us to look, myself and there are other colleagues of mine who might join into this webinar service, for us to know what kind of topics interest you. And then we can choose from them and consider running this as a series. So thank you very much. Before Anuji takes over, thank you so much for coming over and investing your precious time for your own personal development. And because you've been here with us for 1.25 hours, it's a lot of important time. Take one message, if at all, if not more, one message from this talk and practice it for your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
madam.
Dr.
Thank you so much.
And Dr. Anuja.
Thank you very much, madam.
And also, COVID is neither the first nor the last catastrophe that we would be facing. So hence, it's better to learn now and start practicing, as it would help us not only in this situation, but it would be a lifelong practice. And I take this opportunity to thank Madam, to extend my heartiest gratitude to Prof. Priyanjali for this wonderful experience, and which I hope would benefit everyone. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Take care. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.